Hi, everyone. My name is ZIFF, and I'm currently a first-year analyst at PGIM Real Estate, where I work on the New York City originations team. I'm so excited to be a part of the planning committee for this event today. Connecting with others is an invaluable and crucial component to starting a career in real estate. Networking with my university's alumni is probably the main reason how I got my job. And if you're an attendee of this event, I'm sure you also understand the importance. But once you have a job, other challenging obstacles may arise. For myself and many people on this event today started our jobs in the virtual world during the onset of COVID. This next panel is hosted by Gabby Simon. She's the co-founder of Girl Gang and runs business development for Spring 11. Gabby and her amazing panel of senior women have all also started their new jobs in this virtual world. We're going to hear about their experiences and how they've acclimated and met their new teams. So thank you, Gabby, for putting together this panel. And I look forward to hearing the advice that everyone has to offer today.
Thanks, Remy. PGIM's lucky to have you. Now, emerging leaders, welcome to our career discussion about creating opportunity in a pandemic world. As everyone is well aware, we are over a year into our new COVID world, and having a virtual work, social, and/or networking environment is something that's presenting challenges for both companies and individuals alike. While there does appear to be an end in sight, I do believe that the engagement of virtual connections is going to be part of our lives for quite some time, if not a permanent feature. Each of the amazing women joining me for today's conversation is not only creating an inspiring career for themselves, they've actually transitioned into a new company and new role during the pandemic. So I'm so excited to hear what they have to say. Before moving on to the questions, I'm going to ask each panelist to take a few moments and explain when they started their new role, what company they sit with today, and a bit more about their position in the industry. Let's have ERIN get us started.
Thanks, Gabby, and thanks to Gabby and Michelle and Shaq for hosting this great event. My name's Arnold Callahan. I work at Blackstone. I started in 2020, June 15th, 2020, and I work on the real estate debt team. I'm in-house counsel for the team, so I manage all the transactional legal aspects of our deals. I touch every loan from term sheet all the way through closing, through execution, secondary market execution, and asset management as well. So I'm really happy to be here and happy to answer all the questions.
Okay, ANJUM.
Hi, everybody. Thanks again for having me do this. I joined Amstar to do a senior role in U.S. acquisitions on March 1st of this year. So fully virtual start, fully virtual interview process, and happy to chat about that more in this. I'm partners with the president of the firm for the United States, and my role is to primarily focus on sourcing. Most of my career has been all in acquisitions. Here, I'm doing all asset types, and we're focused on opportunistic and value add, but very, very heavy value add on the long lines of adaptive reuse or a very heavily depreciated asset that just really needs a big capital lift. So that's the primary focus, all US, and we tend to JV partner with local GPs in all of our transactions.
Julie?
Hi, everyone. Happy to be here today. Thanks for having me. So I am a VP on the capital markets team at Link Logistics. ERIN, you probably are fairly familiar with Link. So Link is a Blackstone portfolio company. We manage Blackstone's investments in industrial real estate in the US. I joined Link in August of last year. I haven't met some of the members of my team yet, just virtually, so looking forward to meeting them in person. As a member of the capital markets team for a Blackstone portfolio company, say Blackstone, we work together with Blackstone in looking into different strategic alternatives for how we capitalize a business. My team is responsible for reporting to Blackstone on the financial performance of the business. So I work on, regular reporting, and I'm responsible for kind of the quality of the data that we produce for Blackstone. So I came over to my role as a result of, I was at Morgan Stanley in the real estate investment banking group before for 5 years. And so the CFO of my company now was a client of mine. So I transitioned as a result of the relationship I had developed with him. That's my background.
Yeah, this panel actually is a little bit personally motivated because I also moved roles and I just met my bosses for the first time at my 3-month anniversary. So it's definitely challenging, and thank goodness they look like their LinkedIn pictures, or I would have had no clue who I was meeting. But I know obviously Erin's in an office. ANJUM, you said you're virtual, but for the sake of this conversation, let's just focus on what it's like in a virtual environment. I want to discuss some of the trials, tips, takeaways that each of you have found in this virtual work life, starting with how and where have you focused your networking and outreach efforts? ANJUM, why don't you get us started?
Yeah, sure. So when I started the recruiting process, it was fully virtual. I leaned a lot, and I think this would have happened virtual or not, on my existing relationships. I think it was actually kind of nice to be virtual, to be able to make some of these calls to people and have pretty candid conversations behind the scenes without worrying about, do I have to sneak off for a fake coffee break or anything like that. So I was able to really reach out to my former partners. And what I would say was a nice surprise, and I think I would give this advice to everyone, is the brokerage community was phenomenally useful to me as I was recruiting. I mean, never underestimate, obviously, the brokers in your various markets and the coverage that you're going to have, or obviously know all the other players in the markets as well. And their reach may be infinite. I mean, it will be infinitely broader than even yours. And I was very, very, I'm grateful and surprised by the amount of outreach that they did on my behalf to just say, oh, hey, Anjum's looking, you guys must know her. And if you don't, we can vouch for her. She's great. Do you want to interview her? And that was surprising and shocking and fantastic. And beyond that, usual headhunter conversations, except in this case, there was no in-person meeting. A lot of these people, I did all these conversations over the phone.
Julie, you're on mute. Can we get Julie off mute?
Sorry about that. I was saying I also leaned heavily on existing relationships. I think, I would say I developed a relationship with my boss like starting 2 years ago. So what evolved was more the result of that. But I think the key lesson I learned that I think is still highly relevant is just, especially when we don't have chit chat in the office, it's like being perceptive about where there are opportunities. I know with getting this role that I have now, I remember back in 2018 during a Monday morning meeting with my group, the MDs of my group at Morgan Stanley were talking about a deal that Site Centers did that I thought was really interesting. And after that meeting, I was like, oh, I wonder if, they're covered by anybody. And that progressed where I chased down that interest, asked the MDs if I could cover the client Site Centers because they hadn't been covered. And, that evolved into me developing a very strong relationship with the client. I think at the end of the day, it's find little nuggets of, opportunities and just keep on chasing them down. And that will lead you down a path of kind of meeting new people and expanding your network.
Erin?
Yeah, I'll focus a little bit more on once I started at Blackstone and networking within the company. I did start remote. I'm here now. I've been in the office since September, but started remote, and all throughout the time, in the office or not, I try to take part in every single panel and networking opportunity that's offered. Especially internally at Blackstone. The topics and the presenters are always top notch, but more importantly, there's always a Blackstone employee that's either moderating this discussion or introducing the speakers. And I've found it's a great way to put names to faces and understand who's who it's a big organization, and I know my team very well, but it's a much larger organization, and I found that taking part in those opportunities has helped me understand and know the who's who on the other parts of the business.
So we know Erin takes advantage of networking because she is our OG for Girl Gang. The first event Michelle and I ever had, we were just two girls sitting in a booth at the Arlo and Nomad, hoping other people showed up. And Erin walked in and we were like, okay, this is going to work. So thanks, Erin. What have you found to be the most challenging part of actually meeting and interacting with your team if you don't have the casualness of shared space? Even though we're in an office, you can't go and sit in someone's room with them. You can't necessarily hang out in a kitchen area. So I imagine that's been a difficult thing for each of you. Let's let Julie start with this one.
Yeah, sure. So I think, yeah, the hardest part, I mean, when I started at Link, I built out a team and hired a few people. And the hardest part has really been building relationships with my team and training people, especially for like the junior staff, like making sure that they're learning. I came from banking where there was just very rigorous training, and being at on a smaller team, we didn't have, you know, kind of the training the street and like formal training that, you know, big banks have. And I found that, you know, being able to be in the office, the few times I've been in the office with my team have been extremely additive from the perspective of just being able to like sit next to my team members and, you know, work with them together on the computer. So that's been lost. And I think there's also what I found is I've gotten into a habit of being kind of like locked into being locked into like my calendar and scheduling everything in half-hour blocks. I know this is weird, but like something I learned is like I kept scheduling things for a half hour because that's usually how you do meetings, which is very like, it's not how the way things happen when you're in the office. And so I've tried to like get out of the habit of having half-hour calls and just call people up instead, so that I can like preserve some of those like casual chit chat calls that I had before.
Erin?
Yeah, following on Julie, I think it is very difficult when you're not in the office. As I said, I've been in the office since September, so I do have the benefit of being with my team. We are pretty much all back, and Blackstone put in some amazing safety measures to make it easier for everybody if they want to be here. But when I started, I was remote, and I think just picking up the phone makes a big difference. When I started, it was clear to me that somebody encouraged team members to call me one-on-one, because I got a succession of phone calls, but that was huge and helped a ton, because I think that just a one-on-one conversation with somebody helps a lot to get to know them. It just makes it more personal. And so if that wasn't set up for me, looking back now, I would have done that. And I would recommend anybody starting new. And I've had people do it, call me now, who started after me, and were like, I'm some kind of, you know, old hat around here. But I do encourage the pick up the phone, the one-on-one call. And some of them happen via Zoom too, which is even better, because face-to-face helps a ton also. But I do think one-on-one is important.
Okay, ANJUM?
I feel like I'm the weirdo that has actually thought the work from home thing has been infinitely better. And so maybe, so this, I guess, can be the other end of things. My situation is I'm also relocating from New York to Denver. What I really appreciated about starting remote was I was able to kind of, at this point, I'm almost 2 months into this new role, get into the flow of work independent of all the noise of having to relocate. Because I think there is a lot of stress and headache in trying to find a house in one of the hottest housing markets, particularly for some of these cities and particularly for Denver, and to have to try to coordinate that and have that bear on me at the same time as being new on the job, I think would be harder. So I personally really appreciated staggering those two life events, and that first, it's a new job, get used to the new job, get used to the new team and responsibilities. And then secondly, take my time settling in. So I've personally really appreciated how flexible Amstar has been with my onboarding and being very cautious and careful about not making someone feel like they had to move in the middle of a pandemic across the country and get their stuff across. So that was point A, excellent. But what I also thought, and this kind of resonates with what the other two have mentioned too, is the phone calls have been something that I don't think, I mean, I've started at new firms in the past, especially in junior roles in my life, but this is my first time coming on in a very, very senior capacity. And the conversations I'm able to have kind of what feel like quote unquote offline, because that person is in their home, I'm in my home, and we're just talking to each other, getting to know each other, have been so much more intimate and yet professional that I've actually never felt that I've gotten this close to coworkers in this sort of way in my career. And that is, I find, very shocking. That has been such an upside. I expected it to be very difficult and complicated, and it's been the exact opposite. And I think it's because of this, what feels to be an offline, comfortable conversation happening behind the scenes. And so we're just able to kind of get to the crap, if that makes sense, on existing transactions, how we want to look at new transactions. And that dynamic has been beyond lovely. I'm actually concerned about losing that when we all start to go back in the office, where now all of a sudden we're all going to have our game faces back on. Even when you're in offices, you're still kind of on in a way. And I will say, I also even felt that same casual benefit during interview processes. Interviews are obviously much longer processes because you didn't have the benefit of seeing people in person. So I felt like I interviewed more, but it was always one-on-one. And these conversations went off for an hour and a half. That sounds horrible and scary. It's much more time consuming. But what I found is I actually got to the gist of people's cultures much more readily. I've never been successful at figuring out firms' cultures during normal interview process, where, first of all, you're stressed about going into someone's office where you don't know where it is. Are you going to be late? Where's the elevator bank? You're going through security. You get up there. You finally find the conference room. Oh, where do I put my purse? When you're just interviewing from home and they're interviewing you from their home, everyone's on time. It just starts on time. They're comfortable, you're comfortable, and you right away get to know their personalities and vice versa. And that I never in my career of experiencing interview processes got to feel that guttural, hey, this is there's no wasted facade here. This is truly just how they behave and how I behave. And if we can jam, then great. And that's kind of what you ultimately really, really hope for. I know when it's a very competitive recruiting cycle, you're just happy to get any job you can. But I was really lucky this time around to have 4 offers to run up against. And this really was the pivotal decision maker for me, was being able to really weed out cultures. And I will say, at least from Amstar's benefit, it's matched dramatically. And I think that's also what made it easy to onboard. I felt like I already knew everyone so well through the interviewing process in a way that I never really had the benefit of doing before.
So I love an interview process. It's a captive audience where you just sit there and talk about how amazing you are. And I don't really get many opportunities to do that. My sisters are doctors. No one cares what I've done. So I totally agree with you. Were your interviews on the phone or on video? Because Erin, you said you were all video, I believe, right?
I started the process in December. And so I had come in here a couple times and met with a number of people in person. And then my last sort of big round of interviews was scheduled for, I think, March 11th or something. And I live in New Rochelle, which was the original containment zone here in New York. So I called the recruiter. I said, I think you need to tell them that I live in New Rochelle. Maybe they don't want me to come in. He said, no, they're fine. And then a day later, he said, you know what, we're going to do this. We're going to do this on Zoom. So I sort of had a mix. I did not have the benefit of the one-on-one interviews where they were all still in their offices when they interviewed me that day. I was the only one that was home, so didn't have that benefit. But to add to that, when I started and everybody was home, I felt like I got to know people much better, because just by way of seeing the background in their home, or, the baseball cap that they were wearing, or, their golden retriever or their 3-year-old running around in the background, if you start in an office, you never get the benefit of seeing that type of, you know, their home life. You understand like holistically who people are, which I think helped a ton. So
yeah, I would echo that. I feel like I got to know people, not only people on my team, but also clients better too, which I think, you know, from the perspective of somebody who's like was building their career. So, you know, if you're an analyst or an associate in a group, being able to like have access to clients and sit in on more meetings with them as a result of it, like the meetings being virtual, is a huge benefit. Because a lot of times, you know, when those meetings were in person, usually the group that was invited to go would be a smaller group, and so they might not be like, you know, as involved in those conversations. So I think like there's a huge benefit in terms of just being able to get, you know, to meet more clients and really get to know them better.
ANJUM, were you interviewing on the phone or on camera?
All Zoom, all on camera. So yeah, got to see everyone's backgrounds, and I think that all helped. I think it was just even just the feeling when I think when everyone was at home, they just, you know, there was an element of being relaxed that really changed, I thought, the feel, even though the interviews were probably more rigorous, because like I said, they lasted longer. They were rigorous in the right way, where I felt like there was genuinely a desire to figure out, getting to know me beyond, you know, of more, I don't even know how to describe it, like putting on a face. It was just, we want to make sure this works, and maybe we have to be even more careful because we're doing this all virtually. And so it felt like a more mutually desired, let's both make sure this is going to be a really great fit and a good match skill set wise and personality wise and all of those things.
I love that everyone found new positions. This is so exciting. So we've all talked about what our office environment is, but we're still constantly interacting outside of our immediate teams and spaces. So when you're dealing with other branches of your company or clients, or, you know, going after new companies, is that cameras on or cameras off for you? I know, Julie, you haven't started yet, so let's go with you.
Yeah, sure. It's always like at Link, it's always been cameras on. And at Morgan Stanley, my group was always cameras off. So it was different. I mean, I really enjoy being like cameras on all the time now. Like I'll spend probably 75% of my day in meetings on the camera. And yeah, I think it's great. I mean, I think similar to what the others were saying, like I've gotten to know people better by, you know, seeing their dog come on screen or like hearing their kids in the background. Like it's fun having that element. Yeah.
I'll double down on that question. If your camera's on, do you think that the dress on cameras is getting more casual, or are people still full business, at least on top, when you're having these conversations? I'm wearing bike shorts right now, by the way, with this hat.
I'm wearing jeans, by the way. So, although that's not a big deal. I mean, I came from banking that was like, you know, is business formal attire. And I wonder if that's why they had cameras off, because people didn't like to dress up at home. But yeah, I mean, at Link, it's more casual. I think I sometimes like to, you know, I don't want to like roll out of bed and like work in my pajamas, because I just feel better like about myself and feel like, you know, more organized and ready for the day if I've put a little bit into like what I'm wearing. But yeah, it really like varies person to person. I don't think that you know, it's necessarily looked down upon if somebody shows up in a sweatshirt. Like I do that every once in a while, so it's fine.
ANJUM?
We were business casual before and have continued to be. I don't know what people's pants situation is like and don't even want to think about it. So, but I think everyone, I imagine everyone's going to look the same just by nature of we were already business casual to start with. So I don't think it's going to impact us in the same way than like when you mentioned Morgan Stanley being business formal. That's going to be a shift.
And what about Blackstone?
Well, we're here. We're in the office, so you know, we're dressed.
But are you doing conferences with clients? Are you video chatting with them, or is that just still your standard dial-in phone call?
we do Zoom with our borrowers and our lawyers, and it's interesting. I found that, you know, we used to do a kickoff conference call with borrower on a deal, and everybody's on Zoom and on camera. It's a totally different dynamic than how it used to be, which was just a conference call and you never saw anybody's faces. And I think it really helps the deals in general because, you know, there's nothing like networking and going out and, you know, visiting the property and meeting the people. And there's an element of that when you see their faces and you're, you know, interacting not live in person, but a lot closer to it than being on the phone. It's been interesting and I hope it continues.
Yeah, I mean, ANJUM, you're walking properties, so you're probably having more contact with people. But when I was a financial broker, I did years of business with people whose faces I've never seen. So it is adding a personal element. Can you actually go and walk properties right now?
So what's been nice is since I'm East Coast still, while the rest of the team is West Coast, I've actually been the one to continue to tour East Coast properties and meet with partners East Coast. So I think given that I don't have to hop on a plane to be able to go do that has been really nice. So I've been able to do probably a week's worth of touring out East, where I think the rest of the team would have had a harder time doing that, or frankly, if I had already moved over.
Got it. One of the things that Kelly touched on in her earlier panel was having mentor-mentee relationships. I know that some larger companies actually create the situations to help bring people together, but now that you're moving around, have you found yourself forming new relationships? Are you utilizing the mentor-mentee relationships you've had in the past? Julie.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have so many mentors, I can't like count them. But I mean, I think at Morgan Stanley, they have formal mentorship programs. Now at Link, they have we have like a women's group that just started, and I'm sure we'll eventually have some formal programs. But I've always been like a big proponent of just like going to, you know, events, like all the events that are hosted by, you know, the women's group. And usually there will be, you know, an individual at an event who like says something that really resonates with me, or like I feel like I, you know, could have a connection with them. And I'll reach out to people to, you know, like set up a meeting to talk to them. And really like that's how I've built a lot of my relationships with mentors, is just through kind of recognizing them as somebody that I'd really like to get to know better, and like taking the steps to, you know, reach out to them and then keeping up those communications. It's been a huge benefit to my career. And then besides that, I'm working with a career coach now. So I've been able to talk to somebody on a weekly basis, and she gives me, you know, more advice than I've ever gotten. So that's great.
Has anyone ever said no to being a mentor?
I don't know I've never directly asked somebody to be my mentor.
Okay, so it's just organic.
Yeah.
They become that over time.
Yeah.
Because one of the events that Michelle and I hosted for charity, a woman was speaking about how many people reach out to her to be a mentor. And it's like, you have to recognize your own capacity too. And there has to be a mutual relationship benefit in it. So I'm just wondering, what about you, ANJUM?
Most of my mentors have been former bosses, and, you know, I always think the pressure is on the mentee to keep the relationship warm. And so I make a big point to reach out, even when I know they're busy. I know sometimes they are slammed. They'll just send me a one-liner and be like, oh man, I want to meet up, but the next time on my calendar is 2 months from now. And that's completely fine. I would say to everybody on the phone, and frankly, I'm a mentor who does that all the time too, that I know not to take it personally. And I would encourage my mentees to also not take it personally. It's on the mentee though, I think, really to keep those relationships warm. And I think in a Zoom environment, again, I found it easier, again, to be able to grab somebody. And a lot of my mentors don't actually live in New York anymore. They live in various other cities. So for me to be able to have picked up the phone or FaceTime them now, which I would have never imagined FaceTiming one of my old mentors before. That would have just been weird and overly intimate. Now is like, yeah, of course, that's what we're going to do. And it's actually strengthened the relationship. So I think, it actually, as like I said, I'm this weirdo who I feel like I've benefited so dramatically from this ability to have people just be really, really available in a weird way. I mean, I'm not trying to call people at 10 p.m., but there's a lot more flexibility I think people have been able to carve out because they're not in the office and feel like they have to be on all the time in the office, that they're able to break away even for a 15-minute phone call with me is not that hard for them to do. So I think that has actually been easier to maintain. But yeah, I think the onus is on the mentee, and I try to stay really on top of that.
Yeah, I mean, this has definitely created an efficient nature for us, except when it comes to those only half-hour meetings, which ruin your calendar on a daily basis. The groups, the mentees that you said have moved out of the city, was that COVID related or organic relocations?
I think they were, I mean, these were my mentors, and they're older. I think they, for various family reasons, everyone has slowly, attrition has just happened over time. So that's just by coincidence. There's plenty that are still in New York too, but it's been one of those, once they leave, I think I went a couple of years where I'm in a different city as them. It was a little bit harder to stay as warm. I'm not grabbing a beer with any of them, but now all of a sudden the hindrance of that has just evaporated.
What about you, Erin?
It's funny, I've just been thinking about mentoring lately. I've had two of the analysts in our group come to me separately and say, oh, my CREF-C mentor knows you, which made me think, well, I should probably be a CREF-C mentor. So I was thinking about that, and we're launching a mentoring program here at Blackstone. What I was thinking about is organic mentoring versus these formal mentoring programs, and I think both work. And I think it really depends on who you are and how you like to correspond with people. And some people like it to be set up for them, and it's harder for them to, walk up to a person and say, and start talking to them and want them to be their mentor. So if you join a formal program like that, the CREF-C program is great as an example. It's set up for you, and it's so much easier. But I also think the organic mentoring works really well also, so those same analysts, I'll say, well, let's go grab a coffee and just, offer my time. And if they have questions or however I can help, happy to.
I think that's one of the items I try to bring up a lot when I talk to younger people, is that we do have time to give. It's one of the only things that we have to give. And it's very rare that someone reaches out to me via LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, whatever, that I would say no. Even if I don't know the person, there's no connection there, you've sought me out in some way and you can have 5 minutes. Now, make that 5 minutes worth my time. Don't sit there and just have nothing to ask or say. But there's this feeling like you shouldn't reach out to someone who's above you or who you've admired, but you don't have any reason to contact them. In so many cases, people have had the benefit in their career of someone taking the time for them, and they're willing to make the time for someone else. So I think it's really important to just send the email, send the tweet, whatever it is. We're getting down to our last 2 questions. So I will give this as one so everyone can sort of think about it. As women who are more senior in your careers now, what do you think is something that you can do as a leader to help younger women get more involved in what is a predominantly male industry? And for those who are looking to transition during this time and think about new opportunities, what is one piece of advice you would give while exploring that? Let's start with Erin.
Sure. I'll go back to my first comment, which was I networking and taking part in every networking opportunity that is available to you. I really truly believe that my career would not be what it is without networking and my network of people that I have met over the span of my career. I won't say how many years. And so that is my one piece of advice. And the people who are on this Zoom are already doing it, and so good on you. Like, great job, that's awesome. And I encourage you to continue to do that as much as possible, even despite the Zoom fatigue. I think, and I do think brighter days are ahead in terms of in-person networking as well. Can't wait for our first in-person girl gang, Gabby.
Oh, Michelle and I talk about it every single day. We're like, when is the right time to invite people to do things again? Because let me tell you, we are ready. What about you, Julie?
Yeah, I think networking is critical. I know, I think there's this sense that um, that if a mentor, there was a point that ANJUM made just about the onus being on the mentee, and like I think that that's really important. Like you can't wait for things to come to you, and when you recognize, like, just try to stay perceptive about things that you're interested in, or like panels that you go to where it seems like somebody's working in a field that you're really interested in, and like really try to explore that and integrate that into your networking. So I think that will, if you can somehow connect your interests into the relationships that you build with people, that's gonna like give you a lot more leverage than otherwise. So that's a big thing. I mean, I know for myself, like if we're thinking about like what leaders can do. Sorry, like I have my headset here because I didn't want to put it on. But if we're thinking about what leaders can do, I mean, it's like getting involved with recruiting people. Like I know I've really tried to get involved with recruiting efforts for my firm. That's huge. And then it's also like retaining people. I know like people have reached out to me that I used to work with at MS, like women in the group. And it's really like, it's critical to make sure that, they're retained and that they like continue to stay interested in the industry. So just continuing to, I guess, get new people interested and like make sure that the people who do start out in the industry are feeling like fulfilled and that they are getting the connections that they need.
Anjum?
I think so. I feel very proud and sad, but I feel like I've cracked the code on why we lose women in the industry in general. And it's part of this is based on McKinsey came out with a study that, we hemorrhage the women at pretty early stages. It's not when they are ready to have kids, like everyone likes to think it is. It happens very early in their careers when people drop out. They drop out after that first year analyst class, second year analyst class. And what I personally have seen in a number of different organizations that I've tried to fix as a leader for my own teams is what goes wrong is a lot of the casual chit chat that everyone's been talking about tends to happen with the guy who played lacrosse, who's the VP, with the guy who plays lacrosse, who is the analyst, and they just like, jam together. They like either went to school, they just talk the same language, right? So they're on the same wavelength. And it's as casual as the VP saying, hey, you want to go grab coffee with me? And then go grab coffee. But while they're talking sports, they'll also slip in some business talk. And what in real estate, a lot of this business is lingo. And so being able to talk the talk and being able to talk about your deals is a very real skill set that doesn't get any more pronounced than in interviews. And so it really hurts you if you miss out on those casual, no one grabbed me for coffee, no one grabbed me for lunch because I was the only girl on the team, is you miss out on how to talk the talk. And that when you go to interview for your next job, or when you are up for associate and people ask you how well versed, how much do you really understand your deal? The women I found in the interviews we're not like what ends up happening is not, or they're not able to articulate themselves as well in that space because they didn't get those very casual, low stress encounters to be able to talk the talk. Because the benefit of that grabbing lunch, grabbing coffee with the fellow lacrosse player is there's no stakes there. It's very low stakes, right? You can ask really dumb questions. It's very different than my analyst coming to me on an organized Zoom call asking a question. There's all of a sudden a lot more stress. Even though I feel like I'm a very nice boss, it comes with that, hey, I'm going to my boss to ask a question, fear. That doesn't happen when it's the same thing if I would have just been like, hey, you want to go grab coffee? And then we're just chatting. And then, oh, hey, by the way, what happened with that transaction? We're just able to talk. And that I think, one, obviously has been pretty tough unless you go out of your way as a leader in Zoom to be like forcing those sort of casual conversations where I am doing that. I'm just calling some of these guys for no reason. I don't know if it's harassing, but in that we're having these casual conversations. But what I forced when I was in the office, and I fully plan on doing when we're back in the office again, and those days are going to come sooner than later, is, when you go to lunch, you're on the clock. That's not a vacation time. And so in my opinion, you don't get to just grab the one guy to get lunch. You're all going. If you work on my team, you're all going together, or you're not going at all. And that, I feel like I've had to be that strict about it, because I did watch time and time again the women get left out. I don't think it's on purpose. I don't think they even know that it's happening. I think it's just that they were already talking to the guy next to them, and they're like, hey, I'm hungry, you want to go? And then they just went. And so I felt like I had to intervene and just say, not on my watch. The team's not that huge. If there's 5 to 6 of you, then all 5 to 6 of you can go get lunch together. And that, as a senior person, I felt like I was able to force. And I do actually encourage other senior women to do that with their teams as well. That if you're getting coffee, do it all together. And especially if you're doing lunch, make them all go together. Just because I hate it. I just hate seeing that. And it happens, I genuinely believe, by accident, not because anyone's trying to say, oh, I really didn't want her to come with me. So I would, as a senior woman, implore my other senior women to kind of make your junior people all go together. And if you are that junior person, be that awkward weirdo and just say, oh, hey, I'm free too, I'll jump along. It's very scary to do. That's much easier said than done. I don't do it. So I'm not preaching my own advice there. But if you can be brave, please do it. You don't know what you're missing out on. And after a simple 2 years of an analyst program, the difference I've seen in some of my male analysts versus some of my female analysts who didn't benefit from that chit chat is almost too astronomical, and it compounds on itself. Like, we're talking about 15-minute conversations on a daily basis really end up making a big difference after a 2-year analyst program, that it can pretty seriously set you back. So that I want to alert, as I think the reason I see then girls, then all of a sudden they don't get that associate promotion, or they don't get that next job, and they lost out to another guy who was more qualified. But the reason they came off as more qualified is because they spoke better and they were more eloquent and they could talk about their deals better. And that I don't want to have happen in junior women.
Always the lax bro. Always. Every generic story.
I hate to call it out, but it's a thing.
Well, ladies, thank you so much for your time. We truly appreciate this. I will end by saying that girls can golf too, and Girl Gang is taking a stand on that. We hosted a tournament last year. I'm going to start taking lessons soon. So if anyone wants to feel better about their athletic prowess, they can learn next to me, because it's going to be horrific. And I am so happy we got to do this.